This is a timber hitch. You cross over. This rope is the one that tightens it. You can see it has the slipping capabilities. And then this just simply spirals around itself. And then when it begins to tighten on the tree, I'll turn it so you can see, as it becomes tighter, each of these wraps here has contact with the bark on the tree, and it will not allow this tail to slip out. You can't pull this out, see? So once a branch has been rigged with this knot, you'll see workers struggling, trying to pull this out. But the thing to do is you just take this loop and you just break the loop like that, and the whole thing becomes loose and you can get it out, okay? So again, the way that that knot is done is the rope goes over and then it switches back. Let's see. So rope goes over like that, it switches back, and then it goes through. So that's a single, and I can use that on a small branch, but normally you're going to do at least 3. So you're going to go across it like that. See how it's got a loop that runs? Then it twists onto itself like that. And that is the timber hitch. It gets very tight. So why don't you do a timber hitch on the tree? All right. See the slipping action? It's still able to run. See?
I want to make sure they're spaced out around the tree too.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. Okay. So demonstrate me the wrong way that sometimes guys will do, where they just spiral it, but they don't switch back. So it's not a slip knot, it's basically just twisted. Yeah, sometimes guys will twist it that way and they'll just continuously twist it. This knot, now demonstrate how it pulls out when you pull it. Pull it. See how it pulls out? See? The whole thing pulled out. That's the wrong way.
That's how deaths happen.
Yep. So let's talk about the bowline now. So Jacob, why don't you go ahead and, let me move this closer here. Go ahead and demonstrate the bowline for us here. I'm going to zoom in on the rope.
Got your loop.
Yep.
And the way it was taught to me was the rabbit goes down the hole, around, back up again, and you have 3. Once you have those 3, you tighten them, fix the knot so it's tight, and that will not come undone no matter how much pressure you put on it. Even though it's tight, it's easy because you just pull that little loop back.
Yep, perfect.
And then it comes all undone.
Perfect. So I have a loop here. All I'm going to do, there's only one way you can go. If you go up instead of down, this will not work. A lot of times you'll see guys take their left hand and they'll roll this like that, and now the loop is on the outside of these 2 lines. That's not any way that you can tie this knot. I always take this tail in my right hand and I just kind of hold it there in my thumb, so I have the use of my fingers, and I just grab this and I roll it, and then my left hand just takes over and just holds that loop in place, just like Jacob was showing. Once you have that on there, you can see 2 of these are going to become the loop. So these 2 parts right here have become the loop, and this is what I call the pull line, just for explanation purposes. So you're capturing the pull line, so you go through the hole, you go around the pull line, and then you go back through the hole the way that you came. You cannot tie this knot you don't go down the hole and then you go down the hole again. The rabbit goes down the hole and then he comes back out of the hole. So that is how that works. And then once you tie this knot, this is a representation of what it looks like. You can see it has this sort of classic noose appearance here with like a collar right there. And on the other side, it sort of looks a little bit like an S or a figure 8. Not quite, but it's got 2 coming out of that figure 8. But the signature is definitely that loop coming out of a loop. That is what you will be looking for after you've tied a bowline. The running bowline is essentially the same, but it's tied around the rope. So instead of tying this rope, just one rope around the tree like that, now I'm tying the rope around a rope so that I have the capability of basically using it as a slip knot, okay? So for me to tie this rope onto itself, I have to just ignore the fact that this is even here, okay? I am going around that, but it's much like the timber hitch, and that once you go around that rope, the pole line, you just forget that it's there. It's no longer relevant to the knot tying. So now I have this in my hand, and as you can see, this loop is oriented upside down from the way I was tying it before. So now the pole line goes away from me, so I'm going to make my loop the same way, but instead of running and capturing this line right here, I'm going to go away from me, and I'm going to capture this line right here. Now, there is a right way and a wrong way to go through this hole. If I go through the hole this way, this knot will just untie itself. If I go through the knot this way, the knot will work. So you go in, you go around this, and you go back the way you came. And then, like Jacob said, you kind of grab the 3, which is, see, 1, 2, 3, and then you pull this one, and then you can tend it that way if you want to, which I like to always tend it. But you can see that now I have a bowline here. You can see the classic noose appearance, and on the other side it sort of has a S shape, sort of, not really an S, but it's got 2 coming out of that loop right there, and then it's got the noose here. But that's your classic bowline appearance, and it's tied around the rope. As you can see, it's a slip knot. So now this is a very secure knot used for rigging. It's very common that we use this up in the tree. And here we have a correct bowline. So you can see, I can identify this from either side. This side has the classic noose appearance. The other side definitely has that almost figure 8 look, like a twisted figure 8 that goes in 3 dimensions. And it's got 2 coming out here. See how it's got 2 coming out of one loop, and then on the other side it has that clear defined noose. And then it's obviously tightening towards the left, so when this is in use, we want to make sure that it's always in the tightening position, because let's say our rigging point is over here to the right, and we pull this, that'll slide on us. So that is a good running bowline. Yep, so demonstrate it slips.
This is the one that we use if he's pulling up a chainsaw or something heavy. It will not tighten, because usually you have a clasp.
Yeah, if you have a clip, exactly.
He can pull it up without worrying about the not tightening.
Yep, and if you tie it the other way,
tie it this way, water bottle, something.
Yep, and then when you pull up on this right here, it's tightening around the phone. So you literally can send up cell phones and stuff like this, but this knot literally goes both directions. This can be tied anywhere on a rope, right? You don't have to be on the end. Now I do it different than Jacob. I do not go, Jacob, it looks like you're making a loop and then you're going around possibly, or you're twisting it, right? And then you're pulling it through. Is that your method?
No idea, just whatever I can get to quickest.
Yeah, so what I do is I'll take a bite like this and I'll just cross it over. So all I do is hold it in my palms like that, I fold it, and then this goes through, and then I tighten it, and boom. So I've got the bite, this is a bite right here. This is in my right hand. This is always in my right hand. So if I want to tie this the opposite way, I step around and I put this in my left. See? So it's the same knot, but it's upside down. So this is obviously the cinching version. I would call that tying it down, because I tied it to the lower leg of the rope. If I tied it to the upper leg of the rope, that's tying up. Pull that tight. So if I tie it up, it will not tighten. See, I could load this. See, it doesn't tighten. But if I tie it down, it's a cinching version. So when if you clip a carabiner onto this and the climber begins to pull up a chainsaw, you can see that that's going to cinch on the carabiner. And then once it's in the climber's hand, he's going to sit there and struggle to try to get that carabiner out, because you can't support the chainsaw and loosen this knot at the same time. It's basically not possible. It's very aggravating when people do that. So you always want to make sure when it's a chainsaw that you're tying the knot up like that, okay? So that's my method. Now what's another knot that we do?
To send up the rope.
Yep, all right, let's get another rope.
For sending up rope, you make a loop, put the long end towards you, short end over here. Go in, grab the small end, like that.
Yeah, I see that you grabbed the loop of it. You didn't pull the whole end through, because that way now all we have to do to get it out is just pull, and the whole thing comes off, so the climber doesn't have to sit there and use 2 hands to untie the knot. Why don't you show one more time? I also wanted to observe that it seems obvious right now in the video, but this is the end of the rigging line that's being sent up. And then this is the midpoint on the climbing line, okay? So on a climbing line, you're gonna have a long tail always on the ground. You're not gonna go all the way to the end and then make the guy pull like 30, 40 feet worth of rope through. You're tying at the midpoint on the climbing line, but you're at the end of the rigging line. Yep, just like that. So your hand is gonna swim around. Let's go back in time. Go untie the knot. Yep, and you don't wanna make it too tight. So now you're gonna hang this over, and then when your hand goes through here, you're going, let me get it. You're going past the long leg, grabbing the short leg, okay? Now you can do it the other way. If you go around the short leg and you grab the long leg, this knot will tie, but it will be backwards and it won't be easy to untie. So, I mean, in theory it still comes out, but you don't want to set somebody up that way. The reason that you don't want to tie that knot backwards is because you want everything to be predictable. And maintaining sort of a habit and a predictable pattern of work is what keeps us safe on the job site. It also makes it easier, the training easier, and it improves communication.
So the throw line, once you get where you want to position yourself from, when the bag comes back down, you wrap the end of it like that, grab these two, you got a butterfly. Hold that there. Stick that through.
Yep. So this blue rope represents the throw line, which is very thin. It's very small. It's basically a piece of string, and you're using the string to pull the rope up into the tree. So this is kind of a rough depiction of what would be done there. But that knot is usable for attaching the string around a rope. It's a very good knot. And then there's one more that you want to be familiar with. Let me demonstrate this on the tree here. So this knot is useful some of the time. It's not something that we're going to capitalize on, but you go around twice, and then once you've gone around twice, you have to cross over on the outside of that, and you go under like this. Now this knot, I believe this is called a cow hitch, but I could be wrong. But this knot is very useful for any number of things, but it's quite strong. You can see that it can't be pulled out. I'm gonna have Jacob pull on this nice and hard. Let me back it up here. All right, go ahead and really pull on that with all your strength. All right, so you can see the more that you pull it, the more it seems to tighten up here. This is a very useful knot. This isn't really typically used on like capturing a branch, but you can see that it comes off fairly easily. That's normally used for attaching at the carabiner at your hip when you're climbing, or you actually use that knot to tie string around the end of this to pull it over a tree also. That's another way to do that knot. But then I'll show you another way to do that knot that Jacob demonstrated when he put his hand here and then he folded this over. The way I will do this knot is I'll just hold a bite in my hand and I'll just fold it like that. And you can see all I've done is just simply folded it like that, and then I put my fingers here and I fold it together, and now you have something that cinches and tightens down. So these are all very useful knots to know. Obviously the butterfly is great because once you use it, once you pull something up, you can just let it go and it's gone. There's no knot left. That's another value of that one knot that does this, because you can send like a chainsaw to me or something, and then as soon as I pull it, there's no more knot. It's a lot more useful than like your traditional tie a knot in the rope, like an extension cord type of deal, and then I have to sit there and fiddle with this thing if I pulled up a heavy chainsaw to untie that knot. So there it is. Basically, those are just the knots that we use, and there we go. Yep, so those are pretty much the knots that we use. But that should be pretty helpful on the job site. If you can know these knots, you can make more money. Make a commitment to that. So good luck out there, guys.